This episode is brought to you by KPMG. Making an impact is how KPMG helps make the difference. KPMG applies advanced tools and strategic thinking to convert data into actionable knowledge and deliver value by improving performance through transformation, modernizing processes with technology, harnessing the power of data, navigating complex M&A transactions, and enhancing trust among stakeholders. Go to kpmg.us/advisory to learn more. KPMG. Make the difference.
Ford was built on the belief that the world doesn't get to decide what you're capable of. You do. So ask yourself, can you or can't you? Can you load up a Ford F-150 and build your dream with sweat and steel? Can you chase thrills and conquer curves in a Mustang? Can you take a Bronco to where the map ends and adventure begins? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Ready, set, Ford.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. Joining me now is one of the most interesting and intelligent individuals I've ever met. Sam Antar is a former certified public accountant whose career trajectory took a strange turn because he went from perpetrator of perhaps the greatest single securities fraud scream in American history, paid his debt to society, and reinvented himself as the country's foremost investigator of criminal fraud, particularly fraud by those in public office. His services are used by government agencies, law enforcement organizations, law firms and accounting firms, independent investment research firms, and hedge funds seeking the truth. He writes an incredible blog at whitecollarfraud.com, and Sam Antar is uniquely well positioned to help us parse the events of the last several days. Now, Sam Antar is actually the author of all of the original underlying research that proves, in my opinion, beyond a shadow of doubt, that New York Attorney General Letitia James, the woman who says no one is above the law, has engaged in a decades-long pattern of mortgage fraud, has ultimately either misreported or failed to report her accurate financial dealings in her New York State disclosure forms as required by law, and that there is indeed a more than viable fraud case, mortgage fraud against her, which the Trump administration is seeking to prosecute. Now, in the last week, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Bloomberg, Reuters, ABC, these are not, by the way, news outlets or journalistic enterprises. These are propaganda fronts for the hard left. Please remember when you read them, literally nothing they report is either true or accurate, not like the old days. But all of them have reported that the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, which is where Letitia James perpetrated her most recent mortgage fraud, has declined to prosecute, allegedly on the basis that there is no case against her. He then subsequently said that he resigned his position under pressure by the Trump administration when in fact he was fired. How he became the U.S. attorney is an interesting story. He was the only quote-unquote Republican, an anti-Trump Republican, by the way, who U.S. Senator Mark Warner and the other Senator Tim Kaine, who was Hillary Clinton's running mate for vice president, would agree to under the Senate tradition of U.S. senators giving a blue slip, which is tacit approval, or at least acquiescence in the appointment of U.S. attorney. Mark Warner's an interesting guy. He got caught texting with a representative for Christopher Steele, the British intelligence agency who wrote the phony Steele dossier. In his message, he specifically says he'd like to meet with Steele, but he doesn't want to leave any paper trail, which tells me that Mark Warner, despite how wealthy and powerful may be, needs to be dragged before a grand jury along with Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Rice, Biden, and all the others. And he too should be charged because he's involved in this criminal conspiracy. His Senate Intelligence Committee claims that there is substantial evidence of Russian collusion when there is none. He makes 5 factual false statements about me. I'd sue him because he's quite wealthy and I could use the money, but unfortunately he's protected by senatorial immunity. Anytime, Senator, you want to waive that, be happy to see you in court because you are a progenitor and a purveyor of lies. In any event, to get back to the main point, in the wake of President Trump firing Eric Siebert, the U.S. attorney, he has appointed Lindsay Halligan, who's an attorney I actually know. She's actually from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, a very, very smart and capable attorney who's going to prosecute this case. So now I turn to my guest, Sam Antar. Sam, they say there is no case against Letitia James. How do you respond to that?
Absolutely false. First of all, the media is saying, let's break it down. There's 2 properties. There's a property in Brooklyn and there's a property in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia. The Norfolk, Virginia property mortgage was being investigated by Eric Siebert. Okay, the Norfolk property. Okay, she took out a mortgage with her niece, bought the property with her niece, and the mortgage documents say that she is going to be the primary resident. What's going on is that the press says, well, every other document says the opposite. Well, let's look at the timeline, okay? August 2nd, she tells her broker, I'm not going to be the primary resident. August 3rd, the broker responds, you're right. I put down on the mortgage that you're not going to be the primary resident. Then you count 14 days on August 17th as a power of attorney claiming that she is going to be the primary resident. The power of attorney, the lie, came after she told the truth. This is not the lie before she told the truth. So the point being is that she lied after she told the truth. Now, let's take that 14-day gap from August 3rd to August 17th. You got the application that says she's not going to be the primary residence, and then you have this power of attorney that says she is going to be the primary residence. Okay, first of all, the power of attorney was filed with the mortgage. It was never corrected. That was the governing document. Now, in that 14-day period, okay, the lender processed her loan to the automated underwriting system, AUS. Okay, that system will bounce anybody that doesn't qualify for the loan. What probably happened during that period is that her loan got bounced. In other words, her loan application was not accepted maybe 1, 2, 10, 20 times. I don't know. But the point is, she put that assertion that she was going to be the primary residence after her loan was probably bounced. In other words, she needed it to get the loan done. This was not an accident. This was not a clerical error. Now, the press tries to say, well, you know, they only talk about the Virginia property as if it's an isolated incident. It's not. She has a history of mortgage fraud going back to 1983 when my dear friend Joel Gilbert said that she bought a house with a father-daughter, but did the mortgage as husband-wife. Okay, so what they're trying to do is they're trying to take this one case in isolation, ignore the other cases as if they don't exist, and say, oh, it's only this case, and the power of attorney was a mistake. It's all a bunch of baloney. It's all a bunch of misdirection. Just follow the evidence. You want to claim you're an enemy of Donald Trump, it's political retribution? The issue isn't political retribution or being an enemy of Donald Trump, because none of that gives you immunity from committing crimes. If you commit a crime, you deserve to be prosecuted, period. I don't care if Trump likes you or hates you.
Well, I should point out that it is only because Bill Pulte, who is the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, and the professionals in this agency examined all of these documents on which they are expert, and they concluded that she had engaged in mortgage fraud, and they very properly made a referral to the U.S. Department of Justice. That's the way it works. By the way, hundreds, if not thousands of people are prosecuted every year for mortgage fraud. It's just that you don't hear about it because they're not famous or prominent. The truth is, Bill Pulte is the only one currently in the Trump administration who's actually trying to hold these big, powerful political elites accountable for their illegal actions. And he didn't make up these charges. The professionals at Fannie and Freddie and the Federal Housing Finance Agency, people who do this for a living, looked at the facts, looked at the documents, and reached the same conclusions that Sam Antar has reached. The other thing that I find interesting is the other day is when Letitia James, in an interview, I think it was with that intellectual giant Joy Reid, said the prosecution of mortgage fraud is very, very, very rare. Really? Letitia James prosecuted Donald Trump under a state law in which no one has ever been prosecuted, claiming falsely that he had inflated the value of his assets in order to qualify for commercial real estate loans, which he paid back in full with interest on time. The lenders made $48 million. No one has ever been prosecuted under that crime. That's how rare it is. But once again, Letitia James does not hold herself to the same standard that she holds Donald Trump to. One of the questions I have here is one simply of logic. If everything you say is true, and I know it having gone to your website, whitecollarfraud.com, where you very recently completely recapped the case against Letitia James, in essence, to answer the falsehoods promulgated by the Washington Post, the New York Times, Bloomberg, ABC, and others. Is it not likely that there are downstream crimes? In other words, if she did perpetrate these mortgage crimes, are not there likely, we won't know, of course, but how did she handle this in her tax returns? How was this property insured? If this is an overall fraud, does that include, therefore, wire fraud when she received the funds? I'm not a lawyer. I can't speak to these questions, but it is a question of logic. No, Sam?
Yes, there's a whole Pandora's box of lies, okay? We can go to the Virginia property where she falsely stated that she was going to be a primary resident. We can go to the New York property in Brooklyn where she falsely stated in 10 mortgages that she had less than 5 units instead of having 5 units, which she really has according to the certificate of occupancy. We can go to the tax returns and see if she properly deducted her mortgage expense or improperly deducted it. We can also go to the insurance policies and see if she took out a commercial versus a residential policy. We can also see if there were any claims based, trip and fall claims based on a residential policy when she should have had a commercial policy and the insurance company had to defend her and pay up on it. It goes on and on and on. We can look at the mortgage brokers themselves. We can look at the closing attorneys. We can look at the appraisers. And out of all of this, there's about 50 to 60 people that need to be interviewed. They claim they interviewed 15, but of course they didn't say who they interviewed. They could have interviewed the cleaning lady. I don't know who they interviewed. But the point being is that the documents speak for themselves. With every representation she made on every mortgage she took since 1983, whether it's a Queens property with a dad, whether it's the Brooklyn property by herself, whether it's the Virginia property, every single one contained false information. This isn't a one-off. This isn't a mistake. This is a pattern. And for a prosecutor not to recognize it, maybe I should go back to a life of crime. Because if that's the caliber of prosecutors we have today, no wonder why this country is going to crap.
I must say she's in deep trouble. One signal that she's in deep trouble is she's retained Abby Lowell to represent her. He's got a track record for Hunter Biden, for the late Senate Majority Leader Joe Bruno, for my friend Senator Bob Torricelli. This guy is the worst lawyer in American history. He obviously will sign his name to anything, no matter how irresponsible or how false. I'd be nervous if he were my lawyer. You're tuned in to the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Don't go away, because we'll be right back with Sam Antar, fraud investigator extraordinaire.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Ah, Smart Water. Pure, crisp taste.
That's really good water.
It's the kind of water that says, I have my life together.
I do feel more sophisticated.
Smart Water. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. Buying parts for your car? You'll know that will it work feeling. But on eBay, buying parts is different. eBay's free returns means if it doesn't fit, or if it isn't what you expected, you just print a label, drop it off, and get your refund fast. No haggling, no stress, and at least 30 days to return any eligible item. Millions of parts, free returns. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Once upon a mundane morning, Barb's day got busy without warning. A realtor in need of an open house sign. No, 50 of them, and designed before 9.
My head hurts.
Any mighty tools to help with this plight? Aha! Barb made her move. She opened Canva and got in the groove.
Bulk creating Canva sheets. Create 50 signs fit for suburban streets.
Done in a click, all complete.
Sweet!
Now, imagine what your dreams can become when you put imagination to work at canva.com.
I'm Ashley Graham, and as a parent, I know the back-to-school transition can be a lot. When it comes to wellness, Ollie supports me and my family through it all. Kids Multi is big in my house. It supports their immune system, and they love to take it. A win-win for everyone. Shop these products at ollie.com or retailers nationwide. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. We're still talking to Sam Antar. Sam Antar is the publisher of whitecollarfraud.com, whitecollarfraud.com, his blog, in which he specializes in exposing epic fraud on behalf of some of our most important elected officials, Republicans and Democrats. Sam, by the way, I should point out, is not a Republican, not a Trump supporter, not part of the MAGA movement. What he is an incredible investigative reporter who publishes the actual documents he refers to. So if you go to his terrific work at whitecollarfraud.com, you can click on the hyperlinked portions and see the actual documents he refers to. That's why we know that when Letitia Sames tries to say, oh, this was a one-time typographical error, well, that is simply not true. Sam, one thing I want to ask you about in the time that we have left is when you're an elected official, say the Attorney General of New York, you can't claim that a domicile in Virginia is your principal legal residence, because under the New York State Constitution, you must be a resident of New York in order to be Attorney General, no?
That is correct. And also, may I add, she claimed it was going to be her principal residence weeks before Donald Trump was put on trial. And she was sitting there every day of the trial. Now, with that in mind, okay, she has the, what was I going to say? With that in mind, there's also a second document that's false that we missed out on, okay? You have the power of attorney stating that she's going to be a Virginia resident. The mortgage itself, which is the second document, states that she has to move into the property within 6 months. So there are two mortgages, there are two items that are false. Okay? So what she basically did was, okay, she got kicked out of the AUS system, the automated underwriting system, and had to claim that she was a primary resident to get that mortgage through because her finances were not good to be nice to her because she had multiple mortgages on multiple properties and limited income, and now she's buying another property.
By the way, later on in the show, we're going to be joined by Joel Gilbert, who's a documentary film maker as well as an investigative researcher. He's uncovered the fact that Letitia James is not only currently violating the New York City rent stabilization laws, but that in the home in Norfolk, Virginia that she obtained, she's harboring a fugitive from justice for whom there are several warrants in North Carolina. Strange for a law enforcement official, in this case, the highest law enforcement official in the state of New York, to be harboring a criminal at the home that she obtained under illegal and false circumstances. So Joel Gilbert will be joining us a little later in the show to talk about that. Final quick point here, Sam. When you're the Attorney General of New York, you have to file a full disclosure with the state of New York. We have less than a minute here. In one word, how would you characterize Letitia James's filings?
Okay, false for every year that she's filed since 2019 or 18, give or take. Every single financial disclosure that she's made to New York State contains false information. It omits mortgages. It includes mortgages that were not recorded. It excludes properties like the Virginia property. It excludes the Virginia mortgage when it should. False. Everything she puts her pen on, and I have thoroughly documented, and is false.
All right, go to whitecollarfraud.com, whitecollarfraud.com. You can see for yourself that everything Sam Antar tells us today is deadly accurate.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Corporate megastores are spending millions lobbying D.C. politicians on one-sided policies that send small businesses tumbling. They want to enact harmful credit card mandates that take resources away from your local credit union and community bank, leaving Main Street businesses with less access to credit, making it harder for your family to pay for everyday goods like gas and groceries. Tell Congress to guard your card and oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card mandates.
Paid for by Electronic Payments Coalition.